You know, I often forget the depth of conversation it's possible to have with a 17-year-old.
Ma, 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 ma.
Confused? I was too to begin with, but this is actually Scarlet explaining Cantonese to me for the first time.
Ma is your mom. Ma is a horse. Ma is blame. Ma is your grandma. Ma is horse again. Ma is blame again. Ma is what?
Of course, it's not unusual to be a bit shy around things which seem foreign to us. But where art is concerned, over the years, I've noticed that many, many people behave in a similar way. This strikes me as odd because almost all of us loved painting and drawing as children, didn't we? Well, I have to say that I still love painting, and one of my favourite painters is Rembrandt. When I was 16, my dad took me to Kenwood House, where I saw this self-portrait, and I decided, then and there, that I wanted to be a painter. Now, if I wanted you to like Rembrandt just as much as I do, a film, rather like this, might seem to be the most direct way of going about it. Slow, panning shots of Rembrandt's paintings, some resplendent period music in the background, and me, with my decades of enthusiasm, telling you exactly why Rembrandt was one of the greatest masters of all time. But that would be to forget that with painting, enthusiasm, or even a lifetime's devotion usually starts with a single intimate conversation between one person and a picture. How it is, why it is, what it is. It's simple, really. If you get close enough and the work is good enough, you will end up asking these 3 questions. But not everyone can get close enough. I've been researching the comparator mirror for about 18 months now, and I'm fairly sure it is a way of sharing that experience of discovery with a student, of guiding them to the point where they are close enough to become fascinated for a lifetime.
We need to get you an eye patch.
What Scarlet's doing here is making an underpainting. This is more or less the technique Rembrandt would have used, so it's fairly authentic, but it also gave Scarlet a chance to relax into the process without getting too hung up about mistakes. We're using burnt umber in varying degrees of wash, and really what you're seeing is an experiment. I was doing about 50% of the work at this point, involved in the process of painting and making my own discoveries, but I really didn't know what we were going to end up with. That said, I had decided that it was far more important to have a good conversation with Scarlet and for her to have a good conversation with the painting than to try and aim for a perfect copy.
So we've been working with this painting for 2 hours and 15 minutes now, and yeah, it looks quite nice for the time we've been working on it. It's actually quite amazing. The marks are quite similar and it's just satisfying.
What did you say to me earlier on about using certain brushes and things? Something about a conversation.
Oh, yeah, because I get to know your brush a little bit more now.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but when you're working with a brush or a pen a little bit longer, and you will know it better, you will know how you can use it and what it can do. So it's just like having a conversation with the pen or brush in this case.
Do you feel like you're having a conversation with Rembrandt at all?
A little bit like a stalker looking into his private life. You're recreating it, so you're kind of being Rembrandt in that position.
Seeing through his eyes.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
Over the next couple of days, Scarlet and I pushed ahead and completed our underpainting in about 3.5 hours. It was occurring to me that what she was doing wasn't really any different from other kinds of academic copying. The old tradition of students looking at the great masters and trying to deepen their understanding by replicating the techniques. This student, however, had come so far in such a short space of time, despite having no experience of painting like this before. I'm still trying to test my hypothesis here, but it's occurred to me that perhaps the mirror made the process of painting so accessible that self-doubt was no longer a significant part of the equation. Let's just say for a moment that in the original Rembrandt painting there are 20,000 brush marks. That's 20,000 decisions about the best way forward. Now, if each of those decisions is tinged with even the slightest self-doubt, you can imagine the incremental effect on the outcome and the mood of the student. Of course, if you're trying to create art, this doubt is useful. It is the antidote to vanity. But if you're a teacher trying to deepen an understanding, it will only ever be detrimental. The comparator mirror is not a magic bullet. But in the 70 or so students I've worked with, a single memory of working without self-doubt is enough to change something in their attitudes. And if I had to be specific about that, I'd say it creates a sense of permission.
Starey white. It's got a little bit of, what can I say, a bit of soul to it, maybe.
This, by the way, is a crash course in colour mixing and expressive painting, done in about 3 minutes. Scarlet probably didn't need it in the end, but I thought it best to go through the basics before beginning our final colour layer, and because I'd been in the process with Scarlet, I could see that her desire for neatness may actually get in the way of some of the more lyric aspects of our painting.
And that actually almost does enough to connect this area with this area, you know? Just gives you a sense of that light falling off. Mm-hmm. So we'll just have a play and see what different marks you can get.
I think I just get the right colour comparing to it.
Let's have a look. Yeah, that's good going, Scarlet.
It applies on here a little bit.
Yeah.
That should be the same one, but like darker or just brighter, just they're related.
By spreading colours, I mean by using a little bit of the flesh colour in the water, a little bit of watercolour in the arm and the flesh, the painting begins to balance. Yeah. Let's mix the highlight. Let's mix the lowest colour, and let's mix that yellow, which we're hardly going to use.
My mistake. Scarlet spent half an hour mixing colours for that arm, but when she applied them, they just didn't sit right. Then she came back to me with a theory about a second underpainting in really bright, vivid colours, and I began to understand that she was developing her own theory about how Rembrandt was painting. I also began to understand that I needed to do less. I could be her guide, but the real magic was happening between her, the reproduction, and what she was painting with the help of the mirror.
It's like a continuous orange. It's not highlight on there, so the mid-tone should be a highlight and the orange is the under one. If you look back into Rembrandt's painting, you can see there's some similar colours in other ways, and it shouldn't be there, but it just fits in, and it creates the unity. And I think that's how he do it, because as I know, he's quite a messy painter, so he might do it like this and just cover it.
Yeah.
And that's how you see the underpainting shines out. So he might have done it by accident, or he might have just wanted to do it. So that's why I'm not wiping the colours off. I'm just diluting it, but not wiping it off.
Right. Yeah, no, I see your point.
So maybe it will do, maybe it not. Just carry on and see what happens. You need a brush like this that is very old and scrappy.
Yeah.
It helps you paint Rembrandt. It does. What did you just do?
I just took this grey colour and I just went over. Like that.
Okay. So to bring down the tone?
Yeah, exactly. You still get the subtle feeling of red underneath, but it's not like staring out at you anymore. That's it, one movement to give you the whole shape.
It's fantastic, but it's great when you come in with fresh eyes. I can already see things that if you gave me a brush right now, I would tinker with.
Yeah.
But what's wonderful is how you're getting the tone in like the forehead and the brush strokes down the side of the cheeks. The key thing for me is, are you now learning, irrespective of the device you're using, an understanding about how to move colour around and tone? So if we were to move that aside and put you over here with a canvas, are you getting the messages in your head now about how to start to apply?
I'm actually using this technique on my final piece to save my final piece. It actually saved my GCSE project.
Great.
It does.
Good.
To round things up then, and in the interest of transparency, I should quickly reiterate that this was a shared experience. I was painting alongside Scarlet, superior to her in knowledge perhaps, but in many ways her equal in technical terms because of the mirror. During our underpainting stage I was doing perhaps 50% of the work, and this dropped away to perhaps 10% as Scarlet grew in confidence and our painting neared completion. I'm going to let Cameron have the last word in this video. He has around 20 years of teaching experience, he's been a really good sounding board over the last 18 months, and he leads the department at West Buckland with real dynamism, a breadth of knowledge, and above all, energy. So, over to you, Cam.
Well, I think in my experience, one of the greatest things that's going to come out from this is time. It means that I will be able to discuss, demonstrate, and see a result so much quicker. We can do something physically together, teacher and student, which also means I will be able to contribute to the exercise, and then physically show them, as opposed to talk about it, and I will see a result within an hour, as opposed to, could be over a series of days.
Yeah.
So I think time is a key point. And I've had the pleasure of working with some very talented students who may not have needed the comparative device. I think there's an awful lot of students that would have benefited from it, and perhaps, rather than shying away from something they really wanted to do, but opting to go with a different medium.
You mean realism?
Yeah, well, realism, but in painting. They're scared. Some students are literally scared of picking up a brush.
Yeah.
And they're worried about making a mistake. How do I do this? But what if it doesn't work? Well, it's okay if you help me, sir, but if I do it on my own, can I do it? They are now able to pick up a brush with no fear, and they look at another piece of work, completely in contrast to what you might have done on the comparative device, and then go, okay, I'll paint that.
Yeah.
And it's quite an affirming thing for a student to be able to do that.